And welcome back to E2, where today we have a lot to do. I know last episode we did Anglicite, which I described as the culmination of the tech side of the pack, but just because we have this doesn't mean that we're ready to move on to magic quite yet. There are still some items that we can't make yet, like the resonant self-frames, and our infrastructure in general badly needs an upgrade. Perhaps none more so than my AE2 room. Look at this thing. Do you like this room? Don't answer that. The answer is no. A, it's hideous. B, I've built with like fake blood made with redstone, which was a fun trick if you were playing vanilla 15 years ago, but we have the technology to do better. My drives are always full and disconnect randomly half the time. The crafting CPUs can fit nothing in them really, and for some reason I have these Enderium turbines here from like 5 years ago. All of this needs to go. I've had enough. We can start by tearing down all of the walls. That was pretty satisfying, I won't lie. These ugly pillars obviously need to go. I really couldn't tell you why these turbines are still here in the first place. Now, I'm not going to say that this is an improvement by any means, but at least it's more honest, and we have a lot more space to play with. Now, when building in here, we're going to want to first fix this floor. I mean, we've got random ores, we've got grass, we got we've got Jacob in here. Yeah, it's gonna need a bit of cleaning up. In case you've forgotten, all of this is the interior of our giant pyramid here. Now, before I go ahead and actually tear down everything here, it's probably good to have an idea of what its replacement will be. But maybe even more importantly, it's good to make sure that we'll be able to run our replacement. Right now, all of our power comes from these tier 3 solar panels with tier 6 solar cells. These produce a little under 700,000 RF per tick, and we have 5 of them, so it's not bad. But the 3 million-ish total that we get from them, well, that could theoretically be a problem later on, and we have the ability, right now, to upgrade these and never have to think about power ever again. Because with the elite plating that we unlocked last episode, we can make the tier 5 controller. This has more than double the number of cells and should produce like 10 million RF each. So I think the first goal for today should be making these, except that there is one small problem. Making the structure frame for just one of these requires over 100 nether stars. And while we do have a decent backlog, we're not producing them that fast. Our mob duplicator doesn't get enough essence, and so can't make wither skeletons fast enough to keep up with the demand. This, in turn, is caused by our cursed earth farm not being that big, and so not making that much essence. So, I think it's time that we resolve this problem once and for all. To do this, I want to make a Resturbed spawner from extra utilities. We'll be able to set the mob type of the spawner by using the spawner changer from Actually Additions, as well as the spawner seeker. Once we find one, it's just a matter of using the spawner changer and then right-clicking it with a drop of evil to get a Resturbed mob spawner. Now, there are 2 reasons why these are so good. The first is that they ignore player vicinity. They will just spawn all the time, even if I'm not nearby, so in that sense, different from a normal spawner, which is great. And the second, and most important reason, is that they accept upgrades. By putting in the extra utility speed upgrades, these things can go real fast. Now, unfortunately, the base ones aren't very good, and the medium tier require a lot of stuff that we haven't made before. And weirdly enough, something that we need in really large quantities is going to be apples. I spent a little while looking for them out in the wild before remembering that I can just craft an apple tree sapling, so I just planted that bad boy and spammed it with bone meal for a while. Next up, we needed to make magical wood, which I didn't realize used 4 levels per craft. I thought it was just the XP value. Luckily, if we ever need XP, we can go to our sieve mines, and the industrial craft furnaces have a collect experience function. Now, given how rarely I use this and the sheer amount of stuff that goes through these, yeah, my game froze for like a solid 25 seconds here, and when it finally came to its senses, we had 2,400 levels. So I'm gonna call magical wood a solved problem. Unfortunately, what wasn't yet solved was the enchanted ingot. This requires a new machine, the enchanter, And I thought I would set it up over by the other extra utilities stuff by our snake statue. Now, I didn't realize that this needed a full bookshelf enchanting setup, but with a little bit of work, I was able to sort of shove it all into the wall, and I actually think it looks kind of nice. A few cables later, and it was actually all integrated with AE2 as well, so really no complaints. But with all of this set up, we could finally make our enchanted ingots, our magical upgrades, and then place them in our Resturbed spawners. Now you can see just how quickly and how many mobs this thing produces. Our essence issues are solved. Now, with all the essence that we could want, we can crank up the Wither Builder to max. Hopefully, our Wither Skeletons are able to keep up, and with all the Nether stars that we have, we can go back to our original task of making this final tier solar panel. I mean, technically there's one more tier, but like, I don't think that'll be needed at any point. Now, we do have almost everything needed to auto-craft these, but whether our infrastructure can keep up is a different question. At first, our CPUs couldn't even store the craft, and there were just so many bottlenecks when making something this big. Signalum was super slow, a lot of the IC2 generators were a huge pain to make because we needed thousands of gears, and those only came from one single, pretty slow machine. I think it was a good way for us to test where we stand and how we can improve our setups. As a final little mistake on my part, I actually have the extended crafting automation done completely wrong, so that's gonna have to be fixed. But for now, we can make the crafts by hand and set up one or two of these to make sure that it all works. I went over to our floating islands where they currently live, and I upgraded the existing ones to our new improved version. They are a little big. It goes from a 7x7 to 11x11, which means that they are harder to hide. But luckily, I think I have a solution. Because the solar panels don't actually care if there are transparent blocks above them, we can just use little tiles to make it look like there's grass on top of them. The islands get to look complete, even better than they currently are, really, and the solar panel produces at its maximum, or close, efficiency. You can see that this one here is making 16 million RF, and this is one of 5. Okay, so in between all of that, one of the other things that I did is in this building here, I added a second staircase up from here. This used to just be a wall, and it's clearly not finished, as you can see from the 20,000 torches, but I've been working on fitting this little room in here. I know it's not much right now besides a big pit of spiders, but rest assured, this is not a new mob farm. Instead, this room is going to be where we put our new automation for extended crafting. This previous room over here only has support for one of each crafting table, and that's just not going to cut it. I'll be using a slightly different design this time that relies a little bit more on conduits, but obviously the room is still unfinished and very sparse right now, so let's fix that. I didn't end up doing anything too fancy here, but I did enjoy drawing these little Nazca lines on the wall as decoration. And all of these are real ones, just for the record. Okay, so the room is not 100% finished, but you know, we've got some details in, like these cute little Nazca drawings, and I think it's time that we just actually put it to the test. The simplest way to do that is to test out crafting other crafting tables. We can put in a recipe into the crafting table below, make sure we save it up here, and then it will craft it. Now, obviously, we have to get the items to make this recipe into the actual automation interface. For a recipe this simple with only 9 unique items, we should be able to get away with just an interface here, but for symmetry, I'm going to put a packager on top of all of them. Now we can add them as recipes in packaged.auto. And with one in each slot, we should be able to request it and have it actually work now. You can see the items going through, our item is made, and it returns. Perfect. This next one will be a little more complicated, but the same process should apply. Now the recipe here isn't set yet, but I should be able to just request one of these, or not. Okay, please hold while I make a few more patterns. Need a slight detour as we head towards the worst Botania automation you've seen in your life. Well, bad news everyone, or good news maybe. I think it's time for a little rabbit hole. So I wanted to set a recipe for the tier 3 crafting table. Great, all of this looks pretty doable, except Osglowglass is not on auto crafting. Okay, that's fine. I could set it up with a Tinker's Smeltery, but it's kind of slow and probably outdated at this point. Instead, let's just make the ingots. Oh, but these require an advanced metallurgic fabricator. Okay, well, let's make an advanced metallurgic fabricator. We can make these circuits no problem. I mean, we've made modularium machines before here in the forestry area, so how hard could it be? Well, it turns out somewhat hard. This is going to require mutagen, which is something that we have not made before. It does look like we can smelt down some plutonium into mutagen, or maybe nothing, if this is accurate. Probably isn't. But enough talk. I guess we just have to get into it. And we'll want to start into Gendistry by making a bunch of these power modules here. We also need the mutagen tank. And finally, let's make ourselves the producers. I'm just going to slap them down in the forestry room for now. I don't know how permanent this needs to be. And we can give it some power. And unfortunately, it does not look like they are producing this magical 2000 millibuckets for no input whatsoever. So instead, we'll have to request a bunch of enriched uranium fuel, get radiation poisoning, of course, but we should be able to fill all these up, and we are now producing mutagen. I don't know if this is needed for anything besides bees, so hopefully we can just make a bunch now and then be done with it. And that's actually already enough for our metallurgic fabricator. And then we just need all of this stuff. Need fiery metal, which is a little unusual. A bunch of IC2 stuff that I haven't made in forever. We can go ahead and grab our machine controller, the machine vents, and the usual assortment of item and energy inputs. As for where we will set this up, I figure that our crypt here has a lot of empty space still, and it's not like we have too many more advanced rocketry machines to make. So we should be able to sneak it right in. And once I remember to put the fluid in, we should have a working multi-block. That is not working. Okay, turns out it was kind of picky about which input hatch was where, but we've got it working now. We can hook it up to power, bring in an interface. So now, at last, we can make an Osglowglass pattern. Okay, so hopefully now that it has the recipe saved down, I will be allowed to autocraft one of these. And indeed, this time it seems to work. Great. Now, we are still quite limited on how many of these I can make, namely because the mana dust requires Botania, and we're really not making mana very fast with our terrible endoflame setup. But if nothing else, we can encode some patterns now, like the crystalline ingot here. Make sure we save the recipe. And now, for example, we should be able to just auto-craft these by the 100. Although, that is a lot of nether stars. Okay, smaller number to start. Yeah? Look at it go. And now, at long last, we can encode some actual patterns for the solar controllers. We can request the tier 4 here. And admittedly, this will take a while to craft all of these incredibly nested things. I mean, you can even see just how long this screen is. And now we should be able to request some tier 5. Requesting multiple of them is actually way too big of a simulation for our CPUs, so we'll want to make sure to fix that later. For now, we can just make them one at a time. Now, while we wait for all of these thousands of stone gears to slowly craft away, I'm going to make the rest of the stuff for the solar controller. I've been making structure frames in the background, and we need about 48 more for the last solar panel, which we can thankfully make. I've also made the piezo modifiers. So the last thing we're missing is about 240 more of the ultimate tier solar cell, which it's expensive, but actually quite doable. Okay, so with everything else complete, we should be able to pull the items out of here, adding them to the big crafting table, save the recipe down, and bam. Once we extract it, that is our tier 5 controller done. Now it's just a matter of making 2 more, and AE2 is not happy about it. It is a little funny to have the recipe here for something that will only be crafted a couple times total, but to be fair, these are used in some pretty late game crafts. So maybe it's for the best that we start putting AE2 through its paces and make sure we can make this stuff fast enough. Anyways, while those craft, I'm gonna go set up the solar panels that we do have. I'm also going to request some induction providers. We actually don't have many of these on our battery, and we need about 1 per solar panel. Even more, actually. You can see in the tooltip that each of them can only handle 13 million RF, and we're going to be making about 16 million per solar panel. Since we've got 5 of them, we'll need at least 4 more of these. And since Mechanism was being a little sluggish, I decided to use our elite tier installers that we unlocked last episode to speed up the machines, which are a lot more satisfying to look at now. And here we have our... Hey, wrong modifier, buddy. And here we have our final tier 5 solar panel. I went ahead and installed 4 more induction providers into our battery over here. Now, it is currently all the way full, so we're not exactly seeing the most we can make. But if I were to add 1 more and reassemble it, we are making 78 or 72? Over 70 million RF per tick, which is more than enough for anything I could ever conceive of in this pack. And that actually lets us do some fun things. Another small upgrade that we should make is how we get around. You might have seen me with this ender book on my hotbar where I use it to teleport around to all our various rooms, but unfortunately it is full. I can't add any more. So I think it's time that we make travel anchors from Ender.io, as well as, of course, a staff of traveling. These can just be placed anywhere. We can give them a name, and then with our staff of traveling, we can teleport to them. Of course, this isn't charged right now, but once we do charge it, we'll be able to just teleport around our base freely, which is pretty convenient. It's also nice for teleporting through walls. You can see that this is on the other side over here. So, pretty handy actually, except for the part where I just broke all my wall because I thought that would be like 4 blocks instead of 10. Additionally, we can paint them to look like the brownstone that makes up most of our paths. You can even do something like give it a little icon with an item or block. All in all, a great quality of life upgrade. The only real downside is that our staff here uses power pretty quickly. We're already like 10% of the way through. To resolve this, we'll want to make dark steel upgrades. With these, we can go all the way up to empowered 5. Okay, this took me a little while to figure out, but if you shift right click while it's in your offhand, we'll be able to add this, and now our staff of traveling is empowered 2. And then with them in our offhand, we can add 3 and 4. Now that this has way more charge and is way more practical to use, I'm gonna go hop around the base, setting up all of these beautiful anchors. And now, look at what a joy it is to teleport around everywhere with no problem. I know this probably means nothing to you guys, but it is a huge quality of life upgrade for me. And while we're on the topic, a couple other random upgrades I've made are the Infinity Booster card, thanks to the Anglicite that we unlocked last episode, as well as the Tier 6 Void Miner, which was possible thanks to the pellets of RTG fuel that need plutonium, also from last episode. With the tier 6 here, we'll be able to make draconium ore directly, which is really nice. And the reason I haven't set it up until now is because if I place it down, you can see I've been running it for a while, this thing here is going to drain so much power. What you see here is twice what I was making until this episode. So, for obvious reasons, I had to wait until we had sorted out our solar panels. The upside, of course, is that this makes ores so stupidly fast. If this is capable of producing an ore, we are never going to want for it again. Now, speaking of quality of life upgrades, one thing that we might want to address is AE2, and more specifically, the P2P tunnels of AE2, because unfortunately, they are super buggy in this version. They're really slow, they disconnect very often, and they're generally just a pain. I really wanted them to work out, but I think we're gonna have to change. And the solution, of course, is something we unlocked a while ago, the wireless connector. Now, the reason we haven't used these is because if I set one up, let's say, here, and then bring another one down to our heart, you can see that, for example, this right here is using 26,000 RF per tick. Now that we're making millions of RF per tick, this is a lot more justifiable. Now, I don't just want to get rid of everything here, though. I kind of like that our rooms are required to have tunnels underneath. I think it gives it a nice extra dimension. So instead, my compromise to keep all of these various winding paths that go all around is that I'm going to allow myself to use these wireless connectors down here at the lowest layer. So as a quick example, I would put a wireless connector here and bring the others to inside our controller. This way, it means that we get to keep some of the more fun side cabling, and at the same time, we get to avoid the hassle of having all of those P2P tunnels that love to disconnect. Oh, I love you guys so much. I clearly had some frustrations to get off my chest, which I did, like anyone, by building a nice long tunnel. Okay, so that was a much longer process than I expected, but we are now completely free of all P2P tunnels. You can see if I set this to show P2P, nothing, and it's beautiful. All of these diagonal lines that you see here are where the wireless connectors from bedrock level connect up to my controller. Most of this went fine. You know, a lot of restructuring had to be done, but that was expected. But right here, this guy was a pain. Our passive room has 4 separate dense cable lines, so they all had to be brought down, and this tunnel actually met up with the packaged auto crafting, the fusion core crafting, and down here, this is forestry and Ender IO, so it was kind of a huge ordeal to move all of this stuff. You can see just how many wireless connectors are needed to move the channels. But luckily, this should last me a very long time. And now, even though I've been procrastinating it, it's time to do a little bit of building, because I still have to do the interior of that pyramid, and it is going to be difficult, I think. But to start with something a little easier, I'm going to work on this area out here, because as you can probably tell, the little footpath here is not exactly up to par with the rest of the builds. I also definitely need to fix this stone wall that just juts out of the mountainside here. It looks terrible. And of course, I do need to fix these little bridges, although I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them. This one I can actually move, and I realized I could connect it up here into the new room, which will be nice. And similarly, this room can actually connect to the bottom of our fusion crafting room. So it gives us a fun little way to connect everything up, and now we emerge up here. If there's one thing I like about this base, it is how interconnected everything in this mountain is. Anyways, that's enough yapping from me. I gotta get building. Okay, now that seems a little bit better. It's definitely not perfect yet, but I think it flows a lot more naturally with the landscape. And don't worry, our big jaguar statue is just chilling over here. I haven't gotten rid of them. This other side is obviously not done, but I imagine it'll follow a pretty similar pattern. I just haven't made anything in this mountain yet, so, you know, no point in putting it out there yet. Anyways, now, at last, it is time to face this daunting challenge ahead of me right here. The interior of this pyramid. My original idea had been to build a hanging city inside the pyramid attached to the walls. I wanted it to be colorful and to feel unlike the rest of the base, as somewhere where people would live. Unfortunately, what you think will be cool and what actually is don't always line up. So, do you remember a little earlier in this episode that I think the inside of this is going to be difficult? This was my original idea, and while I don't hate it, I also don't love it. It's still just a sketch, obviously all of that needs coloring and detailing, but I don't think that's going to make it what I hoped. Instead, I think I have to resort to the nuclear option as far as coolness is concerned. So if the episode is late, yeah, you know which section to blame. This has taken me forever. The nuclear option, of course, being to siphon off a little bit of the coolness from this giant heart that surrounds our AE2 controller. I started by digging up all of my nice new floor, but this wasn't going to be a simple window into what was already here. My plans were a little bit bigger. And they did involve keeping the hanging city idea, just with a little bit less detail put into it since it would no longer be the main focus. Instead, the main focus becomes this ginormous crystal cave that surrounds the heart. In my mind, this whole area was like a geode that was found and opened, and afterwards the city was built atop it. It took a lot of back and forth on this, but I am super happy with how it came out. The fact that down here it's gray and white with just this light blue that sort of contrasts the whole area, and then above instead it's this sea of color, punctuated by the bright red of the blood that culminates up into these blood runes below the main sacrificial altar. The actual AE2 components were all moved. The processors went from having like 20,000 bits of storage to over 1 million each. Our molecular assembler towers are now way more efficient, our drawers are just a little more organized. And finally, the last thing to do is move our drives over. I've been making a lot of 64K storage cells. I can't imagine we'll ever need anywhere near this many, but hey, no kill like overkill. And I love that they don't stack at all. But with all of these in their new housing, and now, with some veritable data banks over here, we can grab our old cells and transfer everything over. And now, with those drives gone, look at how clean everything out here is. It's definitely not 100% done, but I just love the overall look, even if it was a huge pain to make. All of these crystals had to actually be cheated in because you can't naturally get them. But I do think this makes a lovely view to end the episode on. I know there are a bunch of things that I said we would do and didn't, but this is already really long and really late, so that'll be a problem for next time. Until then, stay cool.